Today, we're going to have a table talk with Rylan Stubbs. We're going to be discussing different aspects of the Christian life, fitness, and mental health. You're not going to want to miss what we're talking about today. So thank you guys for clicking on today's video. Now let's get into it. So thank you for clicking on today's video. We got Rylan back in the house.
Yes, sir.
And so thank you, Rylan, for coming back.
Thanks for having me once again.
Yeah, man. And guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button. Also, leave a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. We want to interact with you also. And that's the whole point of putting these videos together, is to create a community that we can interact with and talk with. And if you're a hater, I'm just going to ignore you. Last time somebody had left a negative comment, I responded to them in a negative way. And I was just thinking, like, I'm going to say something funny. And then I responded and said, "You're behind the keyboard talking crap. What a loser," kind of thing. And bro, after I sent the message, I felt bad. I felt it deep down in my gut. And then he got offended. He said some things, and I'm just throwing jabs, you know?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, Holy Spirit's telling me, "Dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And so I messaged the guy back, and I didn't think it was going to be a good thing, you know, from him. But I said, "Hey, man, we're going back and forth, and I feel really bad for even engaging in trash talking." And so I just want to apologize. And then he was like, "It's whatever, man." And then we just left it at that.
There we go. It's all love.
Yeah,
it's
man.
all love.
So if you're talking crap, I'm just going to ignore you, and we're going to correspond with those who really want to have a conversation. So
there we go.
So what we got going on today, Rylan?
I said we just talk about some fitness things and I guess how it improves mental health. Not only mental health, obviously physical health, but spiritual health as well.
Yeah.
So that's something that it's really been convicting me lately, is just, you know, I guess spreading the message about how, like, you know, being active, running, lifting, boxing, all these things can not only, obviously it helps you physically, helps you overcome some mental obstacles, but then also just spiritually just puts you in a better state.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is going to be a good topic. I found that there's a lot of Americans right now, and I'm talking about America because that's where we live in.
Yeah.
Especially in Arizona. There is a lot of people, and I would say more young than old, that are struggling with severe mental health.
Yeah.
And there is a guy that I think I was talking to you about, is a mutual friend of another friend that does ministry with me, and just ended his life, you know, at 35 years old. I mean, he's not super young, not super old. He's like right in the middle, you know? And I'm not sure if he ever got help. I'm not sure if he ever talked to anybody about it. You know, I think he mentioned things to some people, but, you know, I think it's a real big issue.
100%, yeah.
In today's society, especially with the economy, the way things are going, presidential elections, people are spreading fear porn, you know, and just getting people, they want clicks, and so they make it a lot worse than it is. And in reality, there's always been issues in America. There's always been issues worldwide. There's always been all kinds of problems and things that we have experienced as a nation and as a people. But it's when we get focused on the wrong things that really puts us in a bad spiritual position.
Yeah.
So what would you say about how to get out of the funk and get off the couch and stop eating those ding dongs?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's crazy when you think about it, because, like, if you look at, because we are primitive creatures, ultimately. You know, we used to, back in the tribal days, you know, the men would wake up, they would go, you know, try to find some food, they go hunt, etc. The women would wake up, they would go, like, gather and everything, like, provide for the tribe. And nowadays, I think everything's way too easy and accessible.
Yeah.
And our mind almost has to make up these problems. And I do think that obviously there are people that struggle with mental health for, like, very, you know, like, good reason, right? You know, whether it's a family member passing away, you know, some trauma, stuff like that. But I feel like I guess the scenario we're talking about here is someone who, they come from a good family, they have a good job. Everything seems like it should be going well for them, but then they still find themselves in this, bad mental state, kind of feeling bad for themselves and stuff. And I feel like a lot of it just comes down to like the modern society. It's so easy to just wake up and just be on your phone all morning and not get sunlight and not go outside because we don't need to anymore, right?
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
food stacked up. Like you can make $1 million from your phone just making phone calls. It used to be in order to feed your family, you had to go out, you had to get active, you had to like kill animals and stuff like that, and tend the crops and everything. And nowadays, I feel like it's just way too easy.
No, it is, man.
Yeah,
And especially the isolation.
yeah,
When things shut down here a few years ago, it was, I think, the peak of suicides and different other things, along with people getting sick. But what we focus on, trash in, trash out.
yeah,
And I know a lot of people that are overweight are not always in a good state of mind. And for those who are watching, we are not mental health professionals. No. We are not giving mental health advice. We're just having a conversation here in our studio. And somebody got upset because I associated mental health with demonic spirits. And yes, I am a Christian. I'm one of the most radical Christians you'll probably ever run into or meet. But there is a balance, I believe, to my life. And I do think that everything's spiritual. I was just watching Joe Rogan, and I saw the Tucker Carlson interview, and I like his position, Tucker, where he was talking about being a journalist for all these years and really digging deep into all kinds of different things that aren't really public. And he said, I can really see now that there is a spiritual battle between good and evil.
Yeah.
And evil will impose its will on weak people.
Yeah.
But good also imposes its will on people. And there's this fight between the two. And they got into aliens, they got into the Anunnaki. They were talking all kinds of different things. And I took Tuckerson's position where he was talking about aliens, and he was saying, I don't believe they're these creatures from another galaxy.
Interdimensional.
They're interdimensional from here. And so as he was talking about it, he said, I think they're evil in nature.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden our government is interacting with these things and keeping it on the down low. But yet, what are we receiving from them? And then they started going into, mass destruction, some of the things that we've discovered, technology, all kinds of different things. And it reminded me of the book of Enoch and how the fallen angels had given knowledge to humans in different areas, and they were dabbling in things they weren't necessarily supposed to.
Yep.
And it brought a lot of problems with it.
Yeah.
But it just reinforced that there is a spiritual aspect to things. I believe only here in the West, we're so prideful. We think we know everything, especially when it comes to the body, to natural things, that we put everything in a natural box. And mental health, because of science, we can see what happens in the brain.
Yeah.
But what happens in the natural is only there because of what's happening in the spiritual.
Yep.
And so whether we look at this world and we see houses and buildings, that all started in the spiritual. It started within someone's mind. It started within someone's spirit. And then out of their spirit came out that which we now see.
Yeah.
They pulled it out of somewhere. And it was the invisible world. And I believe that mental health is a demonic spiritual aspect that happens that has a real physical attack on the body and begins to change chemicals within the body. And we think if we just address it medically, And with medicine, it'll go away. And I remember talking to a friend years ago who was going to get on some antidepressive medication. And I said, man, that's great, because there is a chemical imbalance in your body. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't change the way you think, if you don't change the way you view things, that medicine is just a Band-Aid, and it's not going to help you long term.
Yeah.
And years later has come, and it did not help. It actually had a negative effect on his life.
Yeah.
And health, everything.
Yeah.
So there's a spiritual aspect to mental health that we have to recognize.
And it's like with the whole thing with the Band-Aid is like so on point, because ultimately, you're just masking the problem, right? You're not solving it. Like I told you, I used to have ADHD and all this stuff, and I wasn't able to focus. And, it kind of made me realize, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be in front of a computer all day doing all this stuff. If I need to take a drug in order to get me to focus so hard, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so then, found like other areas that I was like basically used to my advantage, you know what I mean? And then you go into like the antidepressants and all that stuff, and it's like, clearly there's some lifestyle thing there. Obviously there's people that have like clinical depression, and that's something that's I don't want to talk on that because I don't know the full extent of it, and I haven't experienced it personally.
Yeah.
But I have experienced, just basic depression from just poor lifestyle, and that's something where even lifting, like if you go and lift every day, when you lift, I forget what the exact like chemical is, but it literally produces an antidepressant. When you work your muscles hard and you work out hard, it produces an antidepressant. Same thing with running. You go out for a run, you get what's called the runner's high, which is literally you feel like a zillion bucks after.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's like if you wake up and you're just on your phone all day and you don't get sunlight and you're eating crappy food, you're putting these chemicals in your body, and it's destroying your body's a temple, right? You have to treat it like it's a temple. And if you're just throwing garbage in there, like my old high school coach, he always used to say, treat your body like a Ferrari, right? If you wanna race like a Ferrari, you can't be putting the Honda Civic fuel in there, right? You gotta be putting the Ferrari fuel in there.
Put the premium?
Yeah, you gotta put the premium in there. And so it correlates so much with mental health too, because I can be having the worst day, right? I can be waking up just like having a bad day, got all these negative thoughts. But if I just go and get a pump, then go run after, and then hit the sauna, and then eat some good food, suddenly everything just like fizzles away, and you're like, wow, I'm fine, But I feel like a lot of people, and it's hard to get into the hardest part is getting started. Once you're consistent, it's fine. But like, if you're in a state where you're not doing any of that at all, you haven't worked out in years, you don't realize that all these problems could be solved if you just, would go and work out and push your body. Because like we weren't made to just be stagnant, right? And I feel like I was thinking about it, and it's like, imagine like the whole going back to the tribal days, right? If you just wake up and you're just laying in your hut all day, right? You get this feeling that like, think about it nowadays, right? You lay in your bed all day, you get all depressed, and you're like, man, like I feel like my life is ending. I'm going to die. That's a primitive response. Because back then, if you lay in your hut all day, you are going to die. Because you don't got food. The crops are all gonna die. Like you won't be able to survive if you just do nothing.
Animals are coming for you.
And it's a primitive response. And I feel like nowadays, obviously, it's technology. There's some drawbacks. I think it's great that we're able to communicate and we have these outlets and stuff, and we're able to reach a larger audience. But at the same time, we're not computers. We are natural. We're made from God. And I feel like unless you address things naturally, nothing's going to change. Because even like medicine and all that stuff, like, some people like really do need it. But if you feel like depressed from just doing nothing all the time, that's a lifestyle issue right there. And I feel like if people just worked out and boxed and ran every day, everything would be so much different. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, you're depressed? Go lift.
Yeah.
Go lift. Anytime I feel bad, I go lift. I feel 10 times better after.
Yeah. Well, that's just like yesterday. I worked out in the morning. I went to go lift some weight, and I haven't done weights in a while. And so I was definitely feeling it. And then by midday, I'm like sore. I'm feeling really sore.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling like I need to just go home and chill. And I was thinking, no, I need to push even harder. I'm gonna tell my body what to do.
Yeah.
And so then I went to Knockout to go work out, and I saw you last night.
Yeah.
And so, I felt better. You know, if you just let your body go, and relax, it's not always good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if we're working out all the time, we should have times of rest. You know, there should be that. But I hadn't worked out in a while.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, I need to push myself. And same thing with the foods, dude. Our foods, I think, are a lot of them are trash.
They're all like 95% is terrible. Even the good stuff now is like the more you look into it and the more like read on it and stuff, there's so many things, especially there's so much soy in all of our stuff now. There's soy in everything. Like,
Isn't that an estrogen booster?
So yeah, it boosts estrogen, which basically counteracts testosterone. That's a female hormone, right? So if you're a dude and you're constantly eating processed foods, you're taking in a lot of estrogen.
They're trying to feminize you, fellas.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like because I used to eat a lot of soy. Like I was vegan for a while, and I would straight up eat tofu every day, which is just straight soy. It's literally just made from soy.
Yeah.
And even these processed foods and stuff, and it literally it kills your testosterone. And as a guy, when you have high testosterone, at least for me personally, all my anxiety just like gone. Like, have you ever tried ashwagandha before?
Oh yeah, I take that every day.
Dude, that stuff's crazy.
Don't forget to take your ashwagandha.
Take your ashwagandha, take your creatine, take your protein.
Yeah.
But dude, ashwagandha, like I used to be super, super anxious. This is before I started lifting. I was super, super anxious and all this stuff. And then I got into lifting and then I found ashwagandha. I started taking that. And I remember within like 2 weeks, boom, all my anxiety just like disappeared. It wasn't like crazy anxiety. It was just like basic everyday, like I guess like social anxiety and stuff like that. But it all left. And you know, that's something that's natural. But there's so many things out there. Like if you're lifting every day as a man, it's gonna boost your testosterone. If you're eating red meat, that's gonna boost your testosterone. And it literally just helps keep your emotions under control. Like you'll realize when you have all this soy and stuff, like if I eat a ton of soy, which I stay away from it now, but like back then, dude, I would just feel so like emotional and moody and all this stuff. And now I'm literally so even keel all the time. Like if something great happens, I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
If something bad happens, I'm like, cool. And it literally just keeps you on this steady level and you feel awesome all the time. And it's like nothing from the outside can phase you.
Yeah.
And I feel like it goes hand in hand with like your spiritual life as well. Because if you're taking care of your body, like your body's a temple, right? If you're taking care of your body, like all this stuff, I just feel like you're so much more in tune with like the spirit, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately you're telling yourself like your body every day. I'm like, oh, it would be awesome to lay in bed and not do anything and chill and not go to work and all this stuff. Who wouldn't want to do that, right? Yeah. But at the same time, like that's one of the seven deadly sins is being a sloth, you know? And then you almost have to fight these thoughts to overcome it. And then that's part of like why it makes you so happy when you leave, because you're like, man, didn't want to do this, but I still did it and got it done, and now I feel awesome. And I feel like it goes hand in hand with like your spiritual life as well. Yeah. It's like whenever you're going through a hard time, you're like, man, I don't know what to do. It's like, dude, just like get in the word. Like, yeah, I know you don't feel like reading right now. I know you don't feel like praying, but you're gonna feel way better after. You know, just learn how to overcome those like little thoughts in your head that honestly I think come from Satan.
Yeah,
like,
man. Oh, they do. Yeah. Oh, they do. All those thoughts be coming from people's daddy's the devil. So if your daddy is the devil, you'll know by the fruit that you carry.
Oh, yeah.
But when we're talking about foods, I kept thinking of Burger King's man boobs. and because of the soy, there's soy in a lot of the meats, especially fast food. Fast food's garbage. Have you ever seen that documentary, Super Size Me?
More. You gotta stop it. Supersize the American way. Getting fat, getting broke, either way you're gonna pay. Supersize me. Supersize it up.
So this guy goes to McDonald's and he says for 30 days, I believe, I haven't watched it in a long time, but for 30 days, he was going to eat nothing but McDonald's.
Oh,
I think he almost died.
yeah, I would assume.
By the end,
That sounds terrible.
he gained 30 some pounds.
Yeah.
His liver was shutting down. Like just crazy.
Yeah.
Kidneys were like destroyed. He had to completely detox his whole body, but he wanted to prove what is in the food that we're eating.
Yeah.
And can this cause health problems long term? And he proved it does.
Yeah.
How many people just dismiss that though? Because they want the easy thing. And what I'm hearing you is we have to discipline ourselves, discipline our bodies, discipline our minds, and tell it what to do. I was talking to Victoria the other day, and I had mentioned we were talking about healing and health. And I said, how many people actually take control of their body and tell it what to do? And the same way that we take control of our body and say, nope, I don't care if I feel that. I'm commanding my body to move. I'm getting up off the couch. I'm going to eat good food. You're telling yourself what you're going to do, and you're resisting the pain or resisting the easy way out.
Yes.
And so many people don't understand that our faith works the same way. How do we resist the enemy?
Yeah.
And how do we speak against those things that are coming against us?
It doesn't come from hitting the gym, but if you hit the gym every day and that's a non-negotiable, if you run every day and that's a non-negotiable, like there's certain things that I feel like you should do every day that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And what you'll notice is that suddenly all these things that used to tempt you, now you're just like, oh, I'm not doing that. Like, why would I do that? And it becomes, one of my favorite sayings is long-term gratification over short-term satisfaction.
Oh.
And that goes for everything. That goes for, spiritual, physical, everything. Like, let's look at it in a physical sense, right? Like lifting, for instance. Yes, it sucks in the short term. Like, it's painful. If you're doing it right, it's painful. But then, 2-3 years go by, all of a sudden you've blown up. Your mind is super strong. You're disciplined. You're sharp. Like, you can think on the fly. Like, it really does help your mind.
Yeah.
And then, you could take that same thing over to your faith, right? It's like, oh, I could seek short-term satisfaction and, going out and just getting drunk, like, all the time, or just, like, being high all the time. And it feels good in the moment, or, like, going out and hooking up with a bunch of different girls. Like, it feels good in the moment. But, like, long-term, what's that effect on you,
Gonorrhea.
Yup.
That's the long-term effect
Gonorrhea.
of dabbling in these streets.
Yup.
Dabbling in these streets will get you
Watch out, Nazy.
gonorrhea.
Scottsdale's a dangerous place. That's why I gotta stay strong-willed.
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there.
Yeah.
we gotta stay protected.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're especially today. I feel like if you're decent looking, you're working, you're doing all right for yourself. We see all these crazy videos of women, people interviewing women, and then they'll give their description. I want a guy that's making $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
I want all these things. And in reality, those girls are giving it up to anyone that looks good.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they got like 3 kids and they're settling down, with what they got.
Yeah.
You can't keep a man.
It's sad. Like, standards a huge thing. Because if you don't have standards, like, as a man, I'm fine with being single for however long it takes until I find someone that meets my standards.
Yeah.
And, like, same goes for women, obviously. Like, as I got little sisters, and I'm gonna be super, super protective over them. Like, they haven't had a boyfriend yet, ever. I think it's for a reason. They know that they're gonna get the heat, man. Like they better bring in a good dude, otherwise that dude's getting some heat. But I mean, yeah, it's really true. It's like, yeah, it's crazy nowadays. Yeah, because like the hookup culture and everything is so common now. And I mean, as a guy, like it's hard, obviously. But if you're constantly pushing your body and like lifting and stuff, and I truly think if you read the Bible every day, if you lift every day, you eat good food, and you work hard, like you're gonna be set.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're naturally just gonna, if you're naturally in the Word, then all these things aren't gonna phase you.
Yeah.
If you're disciplined with your workouts and in your work, then you're gonna prosper.
Yeah.
Right? It's like what you put in is what you're gonna get out of it. If you don't try, if you're just like, oh, just like see where it takes me, like we talked about last time, you're just a feather in the wind, right?
Yeah.
Satan's gonna just boom, call you over here, call you over there. You're just at that point, you're just in a reactionary state. You're not in any sense of control at all.
Yeah. The people have to make a decision. When I had Victoria on the podcast, we were doing a music reaction, and she had talked about a story where there's a fence in the middle of a field, and on one side's God's side, on the other side Satan's side, and there's a guy who doesn't want to make a decision to go on either side, so he sits on the fence, and then Satan comes and says, "You're ours." And he said, "Wait a minute, I didn't make a decision for either," and he said, "The fence is ours." And it's interesting because one guy left a comment on that video, and he said, "Well, if Satan came and said that the fence is his, I'd just tell him I'm making a new fence." Unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
For first off, Satan already owns you at that point.
Yeah.
So you have no power.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of people, that comes down to that pride thing. We think we know so much. We think we know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or if we don't want to believe something, we don't think it's true,
Yeah.
And so there's this fight between good and evil, and people are just oblivious to what's actually really happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the huge thing, because that's ultimately being like a lukewarm Christian. Like you're not going this way, you're not going that way, and
Jesus said he'll spit you out, he'll vomit you out your mouth.
That's a crazy statement.
Yeah.
That's a scary statement.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like being a Christian is hard. Like I feel like a lot of people, especially people who are just now becoming Christians, and they just see all this stuff like happening in their life, like all these blessings and stuff. They're like, wow, I didn't see this before. But at some point, it's going to get hard.
Okay. I need to say something on that. Kanye West, man.
Yeah.
Oh, Kanye West.
Praying for that dude, man.
We're praying for you, Kanye. If you're watching this video, if people are watching this video, join us in prayer for Kanye West. So one of the things that I heard him say when someone was talking to him is, he said, one of the hardest moments in his life, he called out to Jesus, and Jesus didn't answer.
Yeah.
And so he just basically threw in the towel.
Yeah.
Because it didn't resonate with him.
Yeah.
And there's levels of spiritual maturity. There's understanding the word, and there's also understanding who we are and the authority that we carry. And so I remember listening to a pastor who was really awesome. He said, so many people are not seeing results in their prayer for two reasons. He said, one, they're either asking God to do something he's already commanded them to do, or they will ask God to do something he's already done, and they don't realize they have access to.
Yeah.
Kind of like the table is set, there's food on the table, and then they're asking God to give them food.
Yeah.
But the food's on the table, and there's a smorgasbord of stuff on the table, and they'll go for the Brussels sprouts, and they'll be like, man, this is all I get, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yet there's all this stuff on the table that they have access to,
Yeah.
but they have to grab it and put it on their plate.
Yeah.
And they want God spoon feed them, like a little baby.
Yeah.
But you're you're only a baby for so long.
Yeah.
That's why they make the tables and the chairs so small for third grade, so that when you're 20 years old, you can't sit in the same table. You can't stay in the same grade for 20 years because you're growing. You have to, and you're going to encounter things based on the age that you're at.
Yeah.
And so we should expect to grow spiritually. And that's just unfortunate with Kanye. And then now he's doing the porn thing. I heard that he was going to be launching a porn site.
So Kanye West will reportedly be entering the porn industry.
And all the issues that come with that.
Yeah. And I mean, once you really understand God's character, right? Like, you're like, God, I just want to be able to love people more. Like, teach me how to love, like all this stuff. He's not just going to send some perfect woman into your life, right? And boom, all of a sudden it's like set. He's going to send people in your life that you're like, man, this dude's really hard to love. This guy is just mean to me all the time. He's just grouchy. Like, I don't want to be around this guy. But in reality, like, those are the people that God wants us to love, and that's really what teaches. If you can love someone that you don't want to love, like love your enemies, pray for your enemies, that's where you're gonna see real spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And God's like, all right, if you can manage a little, I'll give you a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's
pray for your enemies.
Pray for your enemies.
That means Biden. Pray for Jesus, remove him. Place someone else in office, Trump in office, and I do pray for Biden's salvation. That's another public service announcement.
Gotta tell the people. I gotta tell the people.
Yeah,
gotta make them known. But it goes for everything. Like, if you pray, like God, God can trust you with the little, He'll trust you with the lot, right? And I feel like there's times where, like, I've been in so many just waiting seasons where it's like, man, like, I just been praying for this for so long. At this point, I feel like I deserve it. Like, God, why am I not getting this yet? And it's like, well, I gave you a little and you've done nothing with it. You just sat there and looked at it. Yeah. And it's crazy because, like, once you take action on that and you're like, all right, I'm gonna use what God's given me right now and, trust that his will is pure. Yeah. And that his will is his will, like his will is always what's best for you. And so if you can just trust him in those little moments, he'll bless you like later on. And it might not be like a week later. It might not be a day later. It might be 10, 20 years down the line, but I truly believe if you trust in God's will and just follow his plan for you. And if you're really listening, you'll know his plan for you. Yeah. It's probably these little things. Like, I'll see like, dudes in church that I know are really struggling. And he's like, hey, go tell this guy this thing. It's like, man, that's like really awkward. Like, I don't really like know him at all. I don't want to say that, but I'll go up and say it. And he's like, oh, dude, I've been struggling with this for a while, man. Like, how'd you know? And it's like, once you have a certain amount of those, like when God says go, like there's that verse that says, God send me, you know? And I feel like a lot of people pray that, but then God gives them these little, they're praying for these big opportunities, go out and impact like millions of people and all this stuff. But it's like, God might have someone right in front of your eyes that's just calling out to him. And he's like, talk to him, talk to him. And if you're not willing to talk to him, why would he send you to go out and talk to these millions of people? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I believe God is talking to us all the time.
Yeah.
We just don't, a lot of people don't recognize it's him.
Yeah.
And Satan's talking to a lot of people. And he's talking louder because God's voice is a still small voice.
Yeah.
And I'll just share a cool story, supernatural story, actually.
Okay.
I was driving home from work one day and it was 3 a.m. I was working at UPS. Yeah, UPS. They're a great company. It was at night. I was doing the night shift, driving home, going down Grand, and there is a guy on the side of the road with his bike on top of him. And I stop at the light and I see him, and I feel down in my gut the Lord saying, "Go help him." And it's in the middle of winter. It's cold, Arizona night. And I look over and I think to myself, I'm not helping this guy.
It was a bicycle?
Yeah, he was like laying on the ground, and his bike was on top of him.
It was like a crackhead or something.
Just some guy on the side of the road.
Huh.
And I feel like the Lord was saying, go help this guy. And I thought, no way. And I take off. But I get that sinking, pooling feeling in my heart. So I drive all the way around the block and I come back and I'm wrestling with this thought. And I look at the guy. I said, nope. And I drive off. I did this 3 times. I went around the whole block 3 times. And finally, because I'm struggling with it, I pull over on the side of the road and I tell God, I said, look, if this guy robs me, if this guy stabs me, if this something bad happens, you're the blame for this.
Yeah.
I'm blaming you. I'm doing this because you're putting it on my heart to do it.
Yeah.
And if this goes down bad, I said, I'm putting this all on you.
Yeah.
And so I get out the car. I had an extra jacket. Go wake the guy up, and I'm like, "Hey man, it's cold out here. You don't have a jacket. Are you okay? You want a jacket?" And he said, "No." He says, "I could use a ride home." And I think to myself,
like,
"Here it goes." The guy got dirt all over him, you know, from the dirt ground. I just cleaned my car, vacuumed it up. So I said, "Come on, man, let me take you home." I threw his bike in my trunk, and he gets in the car, and he looks at me as I take off, and he says, "Man, that's crazy. I don't know anyone that would help somebody like me or someone that's on the side of the road." And I said, "Look, man, I'm upset." I said, "It wasn't me. I drove around the block because I didn't want to pick you up, and I'm gonna be honest with you. God told me to come pick you up," and he breaks down crying. And he said, "I thought God gave up on me." And he said that his wife had left him, took the kids. He's struggling. And he went to the bar and drank and drove home or was riding his bike home and hit a rock and fell over and just laid there and just was giving up on life. And then here I come to pick him up and told him that God said to pick him up. So he's crying. I pull up to his apartment and drop him off, and he asked me to pray for him. I prayed for him. He goes home. I get back in my car, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm sorry, God. Like, that was totally you.
Yeah.
But how many times do we miss the voice of God talking to us because we think to ourselves, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's crazy because as Christians, like, that's ultimately what we're called to do, right? We're supposed to bring the kingdom of heaven down here onto earth. It's like, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Right? If Jesus is walking along and he sees someone, like, he literally, no one would touch the people with leprosy. He walked up and healed people with leprosy, right? And then it's easy now to hear that and be like, oh, yeah, you know, that's a cool story. But, like, back then, those people were untouchable, right? And if you touched one of them, you became an untouchable. And so, like, if you bring that, I don't think there's anything nowadays that we can really bring that into context, you know? Like, that's a little extreme. But back then, it's like, wow, like, I can't imagine, you know, imagine if he was just like, ugh, you got leprosy.
Well, you know, I did hear a story of a preacher that went to India, and there was a person with leprosy, bad leprosy. And
I didn't know it was still around.
Yeah, well, in India there is, and he was doing a meeting to preach, and 10 lepers from this hospital that were quarantined heard he was coming. They escape. They leave. They come. They're hiding to hear the message of Jesus. And then they find out that there's these lepers there, and he calls them up to the front. And then he goes and takes his bare hand and lays it on each one of them. And he curses the leprosy. And he commands life and healing in their bodies. And he said he felt his hand press on some of them and go in because of their skin that was so deteriorated.
Yeah.
And he prayed for all 10 of them. And within 2 years, he didn't get the leprosy. The pastor didn't. And within 2 years, he got reports of every single one of them being completely healed.
That's awesome.
And he went back years later and to India, and he was driving, and they pulled over, and there was a crowd of people, and one guy's coming and bangs on the window, and they're like, "What the heck? Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
And he just falls to his knees as they open the door, and he says, "I was one of the lepers."
No way.
And he was completely healed, and he became a pastor and started pastoring a church in India. So it's crazy. There are still stories. There are still stories of stuff like that.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
But who, talking about you, and I'll reference America, how many people actually believe that they have the power of God surging through their body
Yeah.
to where when they see someone with leprosy, they'll say, "What I have will cure that."
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "What I believe will help you in your suffering."
It's crazy when you put it that way. Yeah. Because even like I've struggled with that for a while. Like, I mean, I've lived in Phoenix, like Central Phoenix, for 4 years now, and there's homeless people everywhere. Like, I would used to be able to look out my apartment window and I would see prostitutes on 27th Ave. I would see, like, literally everywhere I went. I've seen dudes shoot up heroin at the gas station when I'm pumping up my tank.
I saw that the other day down here in Cactus.
It's crazy, man. And that was something for a while. Every time I see one of those people, I would just kind of like turn my head and like ignore them. But that's something that I've really been getting convicted about the last like year or so. And even like the other day, I went to the Circle K. I was on my way to work, and I just wanted to get like a little energy drink. So I go into the Circle K, and as I'm walking in, there's a guy sitting there, and he's like, "Hey man, do you have any spare change?" And I didn't. Normally I would give him like, I would give him what I had, like cash wise. I didn't have any change on me. And then I go in, I buy the drink, I come out, I get back in my truck, and I see I remember I have this like there's all this change in like the side of my truck, but it's super hard to access. Like, I used to like get a grip on it, kind of hard to explain, but I basically wasn't like, I have no nails, so I'm not able to get the coins off. I spent 10 minutes getting all the change I could out of here because they're all just laying flat. And so I'm having to pick them individually off. And the whole time I was thinking, I'm just like, man, like, how easy would it be for me to just drive away right now?
Yeah.
And like not do this. But I spent 10 minutes just getting all the change, finally come out with like a handful of change, and I give it to him. And he was like, "Thank you, man." He's like, "God bless you." And just like the look in his eye and like saying like, "God bless you." And I watched, 5 more people walk past him. And it's like, yeah, if he's going to use the change for drugs, if he's going to use it for, I think we just assume that these people are just going to use it for drugs and like, et cetera. And it's like, oh, like, you need to get a job and all this stuff. But it's like, you don't know that.
A lot of them are struggling.
That's not my decision to make.
Yeah.
That's up to God. And the least I could do is at least help them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing. Like, if I got extra bottles of water in my car, I'm like driving by, see someone on the freeway, I'll just like hand them a water bottle, like stuff like that. And it's not even to like feel good about myself. It feels good to help people, but at the same time, it's like these are just convictions I get from God, where it's like, you don't know what this guy's going through. Like same thing with the dude on the bike. Like, you had no idea. You just probably thought he was
just some random dude. Yeah,
some dude that's gonna rob you and stab you. Turns out he's going through the hardest thing in his life. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me, we don't know, we don't recognize the power that we have in Christ.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working at UPS, I was younger, didn't have a bank account, all this stuff. So I would go to a quick cash all the time. And I'd take my check and I'd go to the quick cash my check. And there was this one guy who was camped outside, and he'd always ask people for money. And I remember he'd ask me, and one day I just said, "You know what? I'll give you some money if you let me pray for you." And I gave him $10, and I just started speaking life over the guy. I said, "In the name of Jesus, I pray that doors open for you. I pray that whatever is binding your mind will be loosed in Jesus' name. The darkness that's come to deceive you." And I just started praying over him. And I said, "Hey man, if you're here next week, I'll give you another $10 and I'll pray for you again." He was like, "All right, thanks, man." So for, I think it was a month, every week, I'd pray for him, and I'd just speak life over him every time. And then all of a sudden he wasn't there. And I'm thinking, oh man, that sucks. I was getting used to this, praying for this guy.
Yeah.
Then one day, he comes on a bike, and he's right, and he looks good. He's clean shaved. He's all he came over and he said, "Man, I just want to thank you." He said, "Every time you prayed for me, I just felt like things kept getting better and better."
Man.
And he said, and I reached out to my family and I asked them for forgiveness, and they accepted me back, and now I'm clean. I'm applied for a bunch of jobs, and he's like, I bought this bike so I could get around.
Dude.
And it just it hit me really hard, because we never know what happens when we actually step out in faith and the power that we have to actually help people.
The power of prayer is so crazy. And I feel like a lot of Christians don't understand the power of prayer, like speaking over someone's life.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a lot of situations in my life where I've almost gotten in some really bad situations a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
And then something always went wrong. And it wasn't even anything that I did or anything that anyone else did, but it was just like something about the situation just like suddenly like turned where it wasn't going to happen. And I honestly feel like that's protection from God.
Oh, yeah.
Like my family, they're all very like strong believers. Like, like growing up, I grew up in a Christian home, like both grandparents on both sides are like always praying for me and everything. My parents are praying for me. And I seriously feel that is like their prayers coming on to me, and that's like God's protection.
Oh, yeah.
And
if you got someone praying for you, you are blessed.
You're a lucky man.
Yeah.
Or a lucky woman.
Dude, I remember my dad prayed for me all the time. I was at this party here in South Phoenix. I will never go to another. I remember I said after this, I will never go to another party in South Phoenix again.
Yeah.
I go, they have a chain link fence around this house. And there's only one way in and one way out. It's like one of those rent fences.
Yeah.
So immediately I knew something should have resonated with me that there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
There's two guys patting people down to make sure they don't have any weapons coming in. I come in, packed, the yard's completely packed, music playing, and it's a ghetto South Phoenix party. And so everyone's dancing, everyone's having a good time. And I remember a friend of mine was like, "Man, we need to go. We should go." And I'm like, "Nah, man, the party's just starting. What are you talking about?" And the power of prayer, I knew someone was praying for me. One guy came in, and I look behind me because they start to argue. I hear this fight breaking out, and this guy screaming at three other guys, and one of the guys just punches him in the face, and the guy just falls to the ground. And I'm talking about they're probably no more than 10 feet away from me. And the guy on the ground pulls a gun out. And as soon as he pulls it out, the three other guys pull out three guns and shoot him on the floor. So I'm watching this guy get murdered.
Yeah.
Everyone starts screaming. And on the other side of the fence, I just see lights starting to pop off. And so there's another group of guys on the other side starting to shoot into the party. Everyone drops to the ground, and there's probably like 30 people piled up on each other, and I'm at the edge, and I'm looking, and dirt is flying right where my feet are.
Oh my
Bullets
gosh.
are hitting
That's crazy.
the dirt right
Welcome to South Phoenix, man.
Oh my God. Right in front of me.
Yeah.
And there's bullet holes hitting the house behind me, and I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And I just remember saying, "Jesus, Jesus, help.
Yeah,
Jesus,
for real.
save me, Jesus." And all of a sudden and it's really sad. That guy obviously died. And a bunch of people got shot. And there was these two twin girls, and one of the girls got shot in the head while she was running out, and she died too. And so two people died, and a bunch of people were hurt. I got up, and a friend of mine was about to get up, and it was so spiritual. I remember it was almost like an out of body experience where I could sense what was happening all around me. And this guy was about to get up, and I grabbed him. I said, "No," and I pulled him back down, and all of a sudden the shooting began to happen again. So he
Dang.
would have been running across the war zone.
Yeah.
And would have probably would have got shot. And then we waited a few more seconds. Everything stopped, and I was like, okay, it's time to go. So we jumped up. We started running out, and we're jumping over bodies and stuff. It was people were dragging people out. It was nuts. But I believe that it was the power of God that sustained me, and the power of prayer from my family that was over my life that really protected me. I was in a bad situation. A lot of people were. And
Yeah.
some people say, oh, some of those people had people praying for them.
Yeah.
I don't know about them. All I know is that my family had been praying for me to change.
Yeah.
And I remember having an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
And God was showing me, hey, I'm protecting you, knucklehead. Like, wake up.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, I hadn't been to a party like that before. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It was awful.
Yeah, I bet. Jeez.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went to GCU and, like, the parties there, I mean, that was in Central Phoenix, and it was always just ghetto. Like,
Yeah.
It was just not a nice area. And then when there would be these big things going on, these, like, random people off the street would, like, make it in. It was just not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't imagine, like,
Oh, my
a
gosh.
shooting. Did you know the girl that died?
I remember seeing both of them. They were twins.
Uh-huh.
I remember seeing them dancing in the middle of the like they had the driveway kind of like a stage
Yeah.
or a dance floor. And so I remember they were dancing, and there was like a whole group around them, and they were putting on a little show, dancing. And then
Jeez.
that's what I remembered who they were,
Yeah.
because there was all of us all standing around them watching them dance.
Yeah.
And then we ended up coming back a couple days later because they were doing like a little memorial there at the house, and put up a bunch of candles and stuff, and just were remembering her. It was
Yeah.
sad. It was
I
sad.
bet. Yeah. That's deep, man.
Yeah. I didn't know who she was, but I knew a lot of people that were there. And the guy that was about to jump up and I grabbed him, he's still a friend of mine on Facebook. And
No way.
Yeah.
Dang.
Years later. This was a
cool.
long time ago, like
Yeah.
15 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
But the power of prayer has protected me so many times.
Dude.
It's ridiculous. As we land this plane, we just want to thank you for watching. If you have any comments on the things that we were discussing today, leave it in the comment section of this video, because I like to interact with everyone that leaves comments. And so I appreciate you guys doing that. And we're just having a conversation, kind of a conversation that we would have off air. It's kind of cool that we can just sit down in the studio, turn the cameras on, and have a discussion that we would normally have.
Yep.
And I think that's the beauty of doing things like this. I'd like to call these things table talks.
Yeah.
So table talks,
Table talks.
in the Ignite Fire studio.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, Rylan, for coming on today's podcast and just having this conversation with me. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and we'll catch you on the next video.